Hi Leo, it's Jenny Fitterer here with your March Tarotscope. I have a single card for the month of March. The first 2/3 of the month is Pisces season, and then we will have equinox, and that will start Aries season. So the card I have for you this month, Leo, is the King of Swords. So this is the way he looks. We have this robed man, although he looks more like he's wearing kind of priest robes. He's got this sword, and then over here we have a sort of shadow copy image of him. And he's kind of up. There's a mountain top here. Yeah, so he's pretty kind of high up in the clouds there. And that is the King of Swords. I'm going to see what that says for you this month. All right. Oh, wrong one. Okay, here we go. Leo, King of Swords, knowledge and breadth. At first glance, it seems quite surprising that a man of the church should represent the suit of swords, which symbolize the air element of the mind. It would be more reasonable to expect him as a high priest or in the suit of cups. But the King of Swords is the master of swords, the master of knowledge. His lofty realm of the mind begins high above the mountaintops. Either he has his head in the clouds or develops an independent consciousness, free and independent in his thinking, down to earth and well-grounded. The bishop, or man of the church, highlights the danger of entertaining false beliefs in a state of worldly innocence. In a positive sense, he reminds us that each piece of knowledge includes its paradoxical opposite, not knowing. The peaks of knowing include the limits of our knowledge, as well as the realm in which knowing is transformed into believing. Heaven and earth represent mental absoluteness and practical necessity. He who knows much will also have to define his place between heaven and earth, between God and the world. Success or failure depend very much upon your ability to question yourself and to view yourself from the outside. The shadowy figure on the left indicates the positive ability to look at yourself from a neutral perspective with loving and, at the same time, critical eyes. But the shadow also warns you to beware of splitting yourself in two halves, a potentially extremely serious state. Use your mental powers to better understand your needs and how to fulfill them. It is your conscious handling of the unconscious that will result in a better understanding of yourself and help you to overcome half-truths, superstition, and disbelief. Practical advice. Try to understand what it is that you do not know about yourself and others, and what you cannot know. Make sure you understand your most important needs and expectations. In order to achieve this end, it is most helpful to have all the mirrors of your mind well polished and to know your own star. Okay, Leo, so this one is, how do I say this? It's a great card. It really is. So this card is really, I love how it's talking about, okay, so the king is usually like the master of the realm. So the King of Swords, the master of knowledge. We really think about that as being like the top, the king. Nobody's above the king. In this case, it references God, but that can, look like a theological God, could like a universal energy force. It's kind of saying who's above the king? Well, God. No man is above king, just this ineffable. But that is an important thing to think of because there is something above the king. The king actually isn't the top. So the King of Swords is kind of like the peak of everything that is knowable. And then what is beyond him is that which is unknowable. So there is a realm beyond what is known. There is a power above the king. And so what this is saying is you might be reaching, not in a literal absolute sense, but at a certain sort of a peak state of knowing. And once you are there at the top of the mountain, once you're top of the kingship, then it is this humbling experience at the same time, because it's kind of like you can't go any higher. You've hit your limit. So anything beyond you, you're not going to reach. So this is saying anything that can't be known, you're never going to know. No one is ever going to know. This is where the limit of knowledge comes, and then we transform into the realm of belief, into the realm of faith, because belief is, or faith is having belief in that which cannot be known. As soon as it comes into the realm of knowledge, it's not belief anymore. Now we've known it. We can push the peak of what we know. We've certainly, in our culture and society, we're always trying to push that which we know. And sometimes there's this hubris to think that everything is knowable as long as we just work a little harder, get a little bit higher. The king can become God. All knowledge, or everything that is, can become knowable. But the King of Swords here is really being kind of seen in this priesthood image is can you accept and surrender into, and then paradoxically be free from the stress of feeling like you have to know everything by accepting that there are some things that are beyond knowledge. And then it steps into a different skill set. It steps into belief. It steps into faith. It starts to accept that things will happen outside of your control, because, feeling like accepting the limit of anything is to accept the fact that you won't have total control. Wherever the limit is, that's beyond that. You're not going to have control of that. So the King of Swords, ultimately, the invitation is to learn about your limitations, to try to understand what you don't know about yourself, what you don't know about others, what you cannot know, and not to have despair about that, or not to fall into fear or feeling like you need to now lock down on everything that you do know. It can be like, I'm so afraid of the clouds and the God above that now I'm going to become the tyrant to try to have as much control over what I do know. That can certainly happen. So this invitation is to try to kind of develop that more priestly mindset, that surrender, that into that which is not knowable. So yeah, it's a really interesting card, because of course there's the risk of splitting yourself in half, of trying so desperately to know everything, and then kind of having that double think of if you see your limitation but you can't accept it, you kind of like schism a bit. You're like, I can't see myself as not having this, or I can't accept that part of me might not have control. And because of that lack of acceptance, then there's, you can see that you have a limit, but you don't accept it. So then that kind of like, that fear of that shadow split of not being able to recognize or look at the limitation, yet being afraid of it and seeing it's there anyway. So that's what we don't want. So this happening in March, so the first 2/3 of the month is Pisces season, and Pisces is really connected with the spiritual dimension. So it really is connected to that which is beyond knowing, that which is maybe able to be perceived in some ways, either intuitively or through symbols or through other kind of esoteric languages. We can maybe perceive it, but that's not the same thing as having a full grasp and understanding. So being more comfortable with playing with spiritual practices, playing in the dream state where there's things that we can perceive without having full understanding of, and then our perception grows because we don't try to understand it. We don't try to catch it and hold it because it's way too big for that. We're actually able to perceive more if we allow it to be unknowable. So Pisces season is inviting into the mystery of the beyond, the mystery of those esoteric realms. And surrender is definitely a key word for Pisces. It's surrendering into that giant, ineffable, unknowable ocean, and just learning how to float in it. So that's the invitation and the energy that March is going to be bringing. So leaning more into those spiritual practices of perception and surrender, instead of too heavily relying on the cognitive faculties of trying to encapsulate all knowledge, because also coming up with the King of Swords means like you've got a handle on things, you know a lot. The King of Knowledge is like, he's the top of the domain. So there's lots to be proud of. There's certainly, you can lean on your understanding of that which is knowable. Just know the limits of your realm. And then we have Aries season. So when equinox happens, we have Aries season. This is a new spark, a new life, and it's also it's the beginning of a new energetic year. So in a way, it's this invitation for the king to kind of like become the fool, to step down from the lofty peak and begin a new cycle, to get to learn something new, to get to experience something new, because Aries is it's a fresh new season. It's a new inspiration, and it's like that joy and that inspiration and creativity that comes after the surrender, after you stop fighting to increase the knowledge, fighting to reach godhood, fighting to have absolute control over your kingly realm, and realize that I have limits. I can surrender and have faith for that which I cannot know and cannot control. And that is a new birth. That invites this Aries energy of, so what is possible now? Once I let go of that control, there's a whole new capacity for new growth and inspiration. So that's what'll be coming towards the end of the month. If you want any assistance, specifically in Pisces season, the Pisces season Pay What You Can forecast is up and available on the YouTube channel. Because Pisces season starts in February, which is Black History Month, instead of the donations for that workshop going to me, it's going to an organization in support of Black History Month. So do give generously for that resource, because that won't be going to me this month. So that resource has another tarot reading. It's got a lot of insight on some of the transits that are happening in up until Aries season, and there's some pretty significant ones that are happening. So do check that out. Best of luck to you, Leo, as you play in this realm, and I will see you next month.